in the day. We've got team limited here. It's team sealed. Players have opened 12 booster packs of Kaladesh, got those separated into 3 different decks, and they're ready to do battle. And we've got another great one for you lined up here. No big surprise with 72 countries. We're going to be able to pick some pretty great ones in the early stages here. But we've got Team Germany versus Team Brazil down in the feature match area. And it sounds like they're ready to go.
Alrighty.
You want to go down there?
Let's go.
All right, let's head down for round 2 here from the World Magic Cup. Hello and welcome to coverage of the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas, and we are all set for round 2 action here. This is team sealed. We've got Germany versus Brazil. You got, for a second there, you got a chance to see our German player, Mark Tobias. He's playing against, well, Paulo Vitor Damarosa. You take a look at him right there from Brazil. And they are sitting both in the middle seat. That's the B seat, as it were. And, of course, their teammates are going to be playing on the left and right of them in the A and the C. So let's get underway here, Luis. I had a chance to take a look at the deck looks really quickly here, and it looks like we're going to see perhaps a bit of a slugfest. We've got red-black versus black-white here in our first round.
You're going to see a decent amount of red-black or red-white decks. And, we saw both red-black and red-white represented last round. You see red-black here again. Just this aggressive color pairing makes a lot of sense because you don't take a lot of the cards that the control decks want. So Paulo gets to play a deck he's very comfortable with. Also, he definitely likes the aggressive red decks in this format.
Yeah, he's all about the, like here, the Weldfast monitors and the
Spireside Infiltrators.
He just loves it. He's really found his rhythm with those type of cards, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because theoretically, the white-black deck should be favored, all things being equal, because they can transition to a more controlling route easier than the black-red deck.
Right, a card like Glint Sleeve Artisan is great on offense or defense, whereas Spireside Infiltrator lacks a little bit on defense.
We saw that Paulo kind of forced the issue. He activated his Weldfast monitor, giving it menace, attacked, and Mark said, okay, fine, it's a 1-for-1, my 3-drop for your 3-drop, I'll double block, and it actually worked.
Yeah, and a big reason why Mark would do that as well is he's got very good late-game cards in his deck, like...
Hey, an Aetherstorm Rock right on time there for you, Luis, and that is the type of card that can overpower what Paulo's doing, especially given that Mark is sitting at a nice 20 life, though Welding Sparks does have something to say about that, and he's going to send that Aetherstorm Rock packing, though Paulo, still with no good attacks, unwilling to trade off his Infiltrator for the lowly 2-2 there. Right when I saw that Aetherstorm Rock hit the graveyard, Luis, it made me think of one card. Do you know what it is?
I think
that's not that one, but that one's pretty good too. Angel of Invention for Mark Tobias here, and he's really asked a very urgent question of Paulo. Do you have an answer for this?
In making Angel, fabricate itself 2+1/+1 counters instead of making 2 servos is a little bit risky against a red-black deck, which has access to a lot of removal spells, but much higher payoff if it works out. And looks like it's working out quite well, especially given that Mark just drew Rush of Vitality, so he's going to be able to protect Angel from almost anything Paulo could muster.
Pretty much anything. Any Youngs over there?
Not that I can see.
Yeah, so this is going to be pretty tough for Paulo as we're going to see Mark just keep that mana up for the rest of the game. The card, of course, I was referring to earlier, though, was Restoration Gearsmith out of this black-white deck. It's a type of card that you can play to get back a bomb. He doesn't have any in his deck, though.
Does have a Fortuitous Find in hand right now, and that's the kind of card that I would expect to see slightly more often in Team Sealed if you expect to play maybe more drawn-out games against other powerful decks. And when you have cards like Angel of Invention and Aetherstorm Rock, that is a very enticing card to play.
All right, and now we do see Paulo finally make a move here. He has chump blocked with his Foundry Screecher, but he is setting up to at least get Sure Strike to finish things off here. But that Rush of Vitality, good enough. to save the Angel of Invention here.
And Paulo sequenced that such that he chump blocked, presumably, and then end of turn went for the Subtle Strike. So the Rush of Vitality didn't gain Mark the extra point of life, but it still worked out for Mark. It saved the Angel, and while that Angel's in play, it's very unlikely Paulo's going to be able to make any headway. It's just, an 8-point life swing a turn, gaining 4 and dealing 4 to Paulo.
Yeah, interestingly, Mark did think about what his options were, because with that Fortuitous Find in his hand, he can also just buy back that Angel at some point.
Yeah, what Mark really wants to do is have one of these Eager Constructs die and then be able to Fortuitous Find back Aetherstorm Rock and Eager Construct, getting both targets there.
And he certainly offered for that to happen, attacking with the Eager Construct for offering a trade, but Paulo did not oblige him. And now we see some of the weaknesses of the aggro decks that you'll see sometimes in Team Sealed, where you can really build a good curve. The top decks that Paulo Vitor Damarosa has access to are subpar.
Yeah, Thriving Grub's not the card you want on turn 6 or 7.
Yeah, and as it turns out, that's actually the game going to Mark Tobias. So he is going to pick up game 1 for Team Germany there, defeating the Brazilian and really, one of the best players that's ever played Magic, Paulo Vitor Damarosa, though he's still going to have to pick up at least another game to get that match for his team. We will be back after these messages.
Looking for a place to try out new decks and strategies? Head to your local game store and check out Friday Night Magic. Get more info at wizards.com/FNM.
Kaladesh is now available on Magic Duels. Build endless deck combinations with more than 1,000 unique cards. Play through hours of story with 50 campaign missions. Play Magic Duels free today on Xbox One, Steam, iPad, and iPhone.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Rotterdam. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I've got Luis Scott Vargas with me, and we are going to transition over to table A, which is the one that's nearest to us on the camera. That's Patrick Dickmann versus Thiago Saporito. And you can see we are right in the thick of game 1 here, as Thiago looks like he's behind Dickmann, applying a lot of pressure here. A Night Market Lookout. A Spireside Infiltrator. That's a lot of incidental damage with any vehicles, and it looks like he's got 2 of them on the battlefield here. It's hard to imagine that Thiago's going to survive much more of this. Thiago's playing an interesting build here, Luis. He's got blue-black, which I'll admit is not a color combo that I thought we'd see much of from the Team Sealed event.
It's not one that you do see very frequently, but I was actually watching Team Brazil build, and the fact that one of their best cards in blue is Torrential Gearhulk really gave them incentive to pair it with black, so you get access to the 2 tidy conclusions, and you have these really powerful instants to flash back with the Gearhulk.
That makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for Thiago that time. That was Patrick Dickmann picking up game 1, which means that we're going to be moving back to Mark Tobias versus Paulo Vitor Damarosa. Sounds like we had a bit of a flurry of a finish back on our back table there as well. Dennis Nolte from Germany made some big elephants, it sounds like. He had a terror of the fairgrounds, or...
Yeah, with larger than life.
Not elephants at all. Gremlins. That's crazy. All right, well, let's get underway here. Back on Paulo Vitor Damarosa versus Mark Tobias as they get started here. A nice aggressive start for Paulo. He's got the Sky Skiff, though. Unfortunately for him, no Infiltrator that turn to get it into the sky. In fact, he has another vehicle. He could be a little vehicle flooded here, Luis.
He could also be normal flooded. If you take a look at Paulo's hand here.
Oh, no.
It's 3 swamps and a mountain he just drew off the Boma Bazaar barge. So the upside of this for Paulo is that any creature he draws puts him into a very good spot because he's already got Mark down to 15. He's got a Foundry Screecher pressuring, and any creature can crew the Sky Skiff, and a lot of creatures can crew the Bazaar barge, which would give Paulo some pretty substantially good attacks. Another mountain.
Jeez. You almost could feel it, too, the way he shuffled his cards. Like, come on. Remember, Paulo lost game 1. We were here on our first match there. You can take a look at Mark. Mark's the second most experienced player on Team Germany. Patrick Dickmann has about twice as many pro points lifetime as Mark. But Mark, is somebody you'll see at the Pro Tour frequently. So Paulo, with not much to work with in hand as far as spells go, he has nothing to cast. So he is going to try to make a race out of this. He's going to use his Foundry Screecher to crew up the Bazaar barge and send it in for 5. These are big chunks of damage. Mark is already down to 10, but you just have to feel with spells and lands in hand for Mark that he's going to be able to navigate this game unless Paulo can come up with something very powerful very quickly. Also, right as I say that, I think he's got that Angel Invention in his hand again. Oh, maybe not.
Yeah,
he's got a Wisp-Weaver Angel, but let's take a look at his hand here. Sky Swirl, Harrier, Rush of Vitality, Essence Extraction. So no, there is no Angel of Invention, but a nice hand nonetheless.
Oh, an Essence Extraction is exactly the card you want when your opponent's trying to pressure your life total and finish you off before Flood catches up to them, which is really what Paulo's doing. In fact, Paulo drew an excellent draw there. Pia Nalaar can crew potentially both vehicles depending on how much mana Paulo has and what creatures he wants to use.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm curious to see as well. Mark decided this turn that he was not going to use the Essence Extraction proactively to make sure that Paulo couldn't crew a vehicle. He could have cast it on his own turn and said, okay, Paulo, you have to come up with a creature right away. He didn't.
And I think part of the logic there is that if Paulo doesn't play another creature this turn, then Mark is in great shape. And if Paulo does, then he's going to have more options which to crew the vehicle anyway, so might as well plan for the situation which is going to be harder to win, which is when Paulo has a creature. It just gives Mark more options as to what he can use his Essence Extraction on.
Yeah, how much do you think Mark knows about what's going on in Paulo's hand, by the way? I mean, Paulo passed with 5 lands last turn, did nothing.
So if I was Mark and I saw Paulo pass with 5 lands, 2 vehicles in play, really wants to crew them, the only thing I would get to was that Paulo has Tidy Conclusion.
That's what I'd think too.
Or maybe a combat trick, but then Paulo didn't play anything end of turn with 5 mana, so that basically rules out Tidy Conclusion. You can't not use 5 mana when you have the option. As tough as it is, I would have just put Paulo on either all lands or all lands and like 1 combat trick.
Okay. So he will at least have some awareness that Paulo probably drew Pia Nalaar for the turn here, and Paulo is going to go ahead and get that Sky Skiff crewed. Attack for 5 in the air, and he's going to also activate Pia Nalaar here on the Sky Skiff. This is a decent opening for Mark. Yes, and he is going to use the Essence Extraction to take down the Foundry Screecher, which is going to leave him even on life total. He gained 3. He also lost 3 from the Skiff, so he just stays at 10.
Yeah, negating the attack there is all you can ask for, especially since even though Paulo's flooded, Pia was just a very good draw. She provides multiple creatures to crew vehicles with, a mana sink when you're about to be on 7 lands in play. But Paulo doesn't have to worry about his own life total.
Hey, that was half of it disappearing right here, Luis. He's going from 14 to 7.
Oval Chase Daredevil, it's a card that can apply some pressure.
Absolutely. And we're going to see kind of a defensive Wisp-Weaver Angel as well. He's going to be able to blink either of his creatures, therefore untapping them. Maybe if he uses the Glint Sleeve Artisan, he can even make a 1/1 servo rather than the counter. It's exactly what he's going to do. And he just went from having no blockers to having 3.
Wisp-Weaver is really nice because it doesn't completely stop the Skyskiff because of PNLR, but it does make it so you can at least trade for Skyskiff and 4 mana. And then making the 1/1 servo means that Bomat Bazaar Barge has to run over the servo before it starts getting into Mark's life total. And that'll presumably give Mark enough time to start attacking back with the Daredevil for additional damage and trying to race here.
Okay, well, here's a Malphas Doorbuster from Paulo. He's going to pass the turn back here to Mark. Mark's still with plenty of action in hand. He's got that Sky Swirl Harrier at the ready. And it looks like he's doing a little math, trying to figure out, well, what does my attack actually look like here?
This Rush of Vitality is going to be amazing. It's the sort of card that you want in this situation, because Paulo's going to be obliged to block at some point, and Rush will just make it so the game will no longer be a race. It'll be whether Paulo can stabilize, with Mark's life total being almost unreachably high if he's able to gain a solid chunk of 5 life here.
Yeah, it's pretty tough for Paulo, because when you look at things from that perspective, Paulo, given that he's drawn a lot of lands, has switched gears and said, I need to take a risky line that lets me get in for as much damage as I can. And the way to punish that is, like you said, to gain life. And that would be 3 life from the Essence Extraction earlier, plus another, 4 to 6 here, 4 to 5 here, is going to really make it tough for Paulo. If Mark gains 8 life over the course of this game where Paulo's working with, not a lot, it's going to make it really tough for him.
Yep. Paulo's draw is capable of dealing 20 or 21 damage, a lot more than it is capable of dealing 29 damage. He just does not have enough gas.
Now, this is kind of interesting, though, for Mark. He did attack with the Oval Chase Daredevil. It got blocked by the Bazaar Barge, and Paulo just said, okay, and then Mark said, all right, and it went away. So it didn't actually work out that well for him. He decided not to use the Rush.
And one reason you wouldn't use Rush of Vitality there is that the Daredevil will come back as soon as Mark uses that acrobatic maneuver in hand to blink Glint Sleeve Artisan, make a servo, return Oval Chase Daredevil to hand.
Yeah.
So Mark just not that worried about it.
He's just not that worried about it, and on top of it, look at the situation here. He's got 2 lethal threats in the air that must be blocked. And Paulo, well, he does have blockers for both. They're both chump blocks. It's going to be very tough for Paulo to get in for the full 10 here, as he's really forced to try it, right? He knows that if he just sits here, next turn he can chump block twice and survive, but that's just not a winning game for him. What does he have?
Looks like an Ambitious Aetherborn.
Okay. That'd normally be a pretty reasonable draw at this point.
It does double crew the vehicles, and that combined with Malphas Doorbuster to make it harder on Mark blocking.
Yeah.
Plus PNLR. Paulo's not quite there on lethal, but he's very close.
He's very close.
Well,
and he's really forcing Mark to have a card like Rush of Vitality here, right?
He can Doorbuster the Sky Swirl Hero, sack both of the 1/1s.
Can he make it so he can't block anything?
And he can make it so all his creatures get through. So the Ambitious Aetherborn actually is going to let Paulo steal this game. Because he now
has lethal now?
And Mark's not able to block anything, so Rush of Vitality doesn't do it.
Wow, so if Mark Tobias would have used his Rush, for example, on that prior attack, he could have put himself out of range.
Oh, not only would Mark have been
taken out
5
the
higher
Bazaar
life,
Barge.
the Bazaar Barge would have died, and Paulo was able to use multiple not blocking abilities to make it so none of Mark's creatures got into combat and the Rush didn't do anything.
Wow, I cannot believe that Paulo just stole that game. It looked so bad from turn 2. When we came in, he had just played land number 4, played the Bazaar Barge looking for any action he could get, and whiffed. And he somehow stole that game. Incredible stuff from Paulo Vitor Damarosa. I mean, we do expect it from him, as a Hall of Famer.
He doesn't have 10 Pro Tour top 8s by accident.
Right. Unreal. Okay, well, that means that we get to pop in and take a look back on Table A here, where we've got Patrick Dickmann versus Tiago Saporito, and the ideal turn 1 open here for Dickmann. He's got Night Market Lookout. Thankfully, he doesn't have a Nightmare Lash.
Well, it's quite a nightmare for Tiago, actually.
It absolutely is. It is going to give him a lashing.
Turn 1 Night Market Lookout represents 2 damage a turn, one of which is actually gains a life for Patrick, and then Tiago actually found an answer just a turn too late.
He did, yeah. This is really interesting, but that is
still gonna
a
be good.
fantastic answer here to the board state that Patrick has put forth. Because it means that really Patrick's going to be forced to find a removal spell if he wants to keep the damage flowing. Now, if he does, God forbid if he has a unlicensed disintegration here, it could just be over, right? Just kill that, hit you for 5, you take 3 off of the disintegration.
Contrarian Kingpin's very powerful card. It's great in the early game, great in the late game, and that's one of the cards that's really making this blue-black deck work. But Patrick has multiple ways to kind of get around that.
It looks like Tiago declined to block here as well. And another follow-up play from Patrick Dickman. He's got the Spireside Infiltrator. And, the really scary part, if you're sitting in Tiago's seat, is that if Patrick finds a vehicle, now he has a steady stream of 2 damage a turn that he can just repeat without even having to attack.
Yeah, the combination of when this becomes tapped and vehicles, obviously a natural one, and a deck that wants either Night Market Lookout or Spireside Infiltrator frequently wants the other. And we saw Patrick with multiple vehicles in play game 1.
You can see Contraband Kingpin here. Scry a couple of times thanks to the Weaponcraft enthusiast there. Looks like he did find something to keep on top. Another update, by the way, from our table C. They're going to game 3. So that was Patrick Fernandez forcing game 3 against Dennis Nolte. So yes, this one is shaping up quite nicely. We've got 2 game 3s on both table B and C as we keep an eye on table A here on their second game. Land number 4 for Dickman has finally arrived. Let's see what he can do with it.
Oh, he's got a great suite of options here. Looks like Built to Smash and Welding Sparks mean that Patrick can Welding Sparks away the Contraband Kingpin, attack with everything, and then Built to Smash to save the Night Market Lookout. Or you could just not even risk the Night Market Lookout and then essentially trade Built to Smash for some servo tokens.
All right, well, he's going to get some value out of Built to Smash. Now, he's going to have to worry. Well, it looks like he wasn't worried about it at all. He's just going to go for the Built to Smash. But Select for Inspection could have been pretty awkward for him. There's only spell that really mattered. But Tiago doesn't have it.
Yeah, and this Renegade Freighter is going to work out so well because, as you mentioned, it's going to start getting crewed by Night Market Lookout and Spireside Infiltrator end of turn, dealing 2 damage to Tiago, and then next turn it'll threaten to attack for 5. It also adds a second artifact to the board to make this Welding Sparks slightly more powerful.
So, things not looking great for Tiago. Even it's weird to say that after he just cast a Gearseeker Serpent, which is traditionally the play that he's kind of building up to in a control deck like this. But honestly, it may just not be enough if Dickman can put this together. And Patrick, he loves playing Affinity in Modern. I wouldn't be surprised to see him play that later in the tournament here. This has a similar feel in the sense that he's using these sort of underpowered smaller creatures to eke out damage, every single damage mattering. And right now he's just in a good spot on board.
Yeah, Night Market Lookout is not a card you casually put in your deck. You have a purpose for that card.
So let's see what Patrick comes up with here. Is he just going to pump the brakes? He's got a Doomed Operative. But wait, there's more. An Emerald Bruiser. But yeah, he's just going to pass the turn back. And he's just like, Tiago, you have to deal with what I have here. Because in 5 turns, you're dead if you do nothing. And the Doomed Operative doing a really good job of holding back the Serpent. Because if the game plan for Tiago is I'm going to just tap all my mana and make my Serpent unblockable, that's not going to work either.
No, especially with the life gain from
the Lookout.
Lookout.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Dickman and his aggro deck's now at 24. Gaining a bunch of life. Ooh, but make obsolete. That was a nice one there for Saporito. He got the Emerald Bruiser, but more importantly, the Night Market Lookout. So that is going to help him extend his clock significantly as the Spireside Infiltrator is going to be able to do 1 damage a turn. But, when you're sitting on 8, it gives you a lot of time to find some answers.
Yeah, that was pretty key for Tiago since now at least he isn't dead just immediately. But that Welding Sparks is just threatening to eventually take out Gearseeker Serpent if Patrick can find another artifact. And at that point, the floodgates will open.
Let's see what Patrick has for us here this turn. Great start to the game for him. He's already up a game, and he just needs to finish off this 1 game here to defeat Tiago and give Team Germany 1 match towards the good. Another Renegade Freighter? Wow, now that Gearseeker Serpent's doing pretty good work here, holding back a pair of trains.
Yeah, I suspect that Patrick is setting up for the Welding Sparks on the Serpent, at which point he can start sending in freighters, though Self-Assembler does make that a little less enticing because now you're just going to trade your freighter for a Self-Assembler every turn.
Yeah.
That still might add up to enough damage, especially with Spireside Infiltrator.
Smart play by Saporito there as well. You saw that he knew already that it was on the bottom of his library. He'd put it there with the Contraband Kingpin, knowing that he could get it back later. He didn't want to have it stuck in his hand. Interesting. Tiago did not have the select for inspection that one turn, but I think he does now. He keeps leaving up that one island, which looks a little ominous.
Let's take a look here. Looks like a Janjit Sentry.
Oh, it's a Sentry. Yeah, I saw it wrong then. Apologies. All right, but that Renegade Freighter does get him up to 3 artifacts. 3 plus 3 equals 6, so down goes the Gearseeker Serpent. And that's going to clear the way for some crewing here, it looks like.
And so now if you send in the 2 5/4 tramples, getting the Scrap Heap Scrounger in the mix seems pretty good, even though it gets blanked by Self-Assembler. That prevents Self-Assembler from blocking one of the Renegade Freighters.
Tiago Saporito at 6 life. He is fighting to hang on. Now, he certainly has powerful top-end option in his list here. But this is really tough. Remember, the trains both get bigger and have trample on the attack here.
I mean, Tiago is falling, to 2 on this attack. And with a Spireside Infiltrator in play, that's not a very good life total to be at. Just the trample from Renegade Freighter is just so hard to deal with here.
One of the freighters does get traded off, but unfortunately for Tiago, his board is now gone, and he may need to see a Torrential Gearhulk or something along that level immediately. Even then, it might not be enough. Yeah, he found Padim, and Padim does not get the job done. Tiago extends the hand, and Patrick Dickmann wins the first match here for Team Germany. So he wins 2-0, which means that our pair of game 3s on our other 2 tables are going to be the determining factors here, as you see Patrick immediately jumping ship here to go help out his teammate. All right, let's jump back to our main table. This is the one that we started on, and this is Paulo Vitor Damarosa on the right-hand side of your screen versus Mark Tobias on the left, and white-black versus red-black. Let's see who can win this. I still can't believe that Paulo stole that game. It looked so good for Mark. He had to take lethal damage staring at a card that could gain him 5 life. It's just the most miserable spot. But Paulo found the win.
Yeah, by making it so none of Mark's creatures could block, preventing 3 of them from blocking in the same turn, Paulo's able to sneak in enough damage there.
Yeah. All Scroungers all the time here down in the feature match area here for Team Sealed.
It's a great card.
It is very solid, especially in these aggressive decks. And it's even better in Team Sealed because you can build these curve-based decks so much better. It's hard to in draft. They always kind of drift a little more towards the mid-range, whether you wanted them to or not, but not in Team Sealed. Trusty Companion. He's got a Robo-Dog and a Meaty Dog here. In the meantime, Scrap Heap Scrounger, as it does, just gets sent into the red zone. Can't block anyway. If it has any possible trades, you just send it in.
You see Paulo's deck very set up for aggression. He's got 2 3-power creatures, one with evasion, one that just can't block, and he really doesn't want to spend his time on the defensive. So the fact that Mark got on the board first is pretty relevant, though. This turn, not as impressive.
Yeah, that may signal that he just doesn't have anything else to do. It also may signal that he's digging for lands. And yeah, Mark's going to go for the value line here. He's going to use his Aviary Mechanic to pick up that Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot, which lets him cast it again and draw another card off of it. He can sacrifice it later on if he'd like. Now, that isn't free, right? I mean, he is facing a very aggressive deck from Paulo and giving up, a life total here and a life total there while spending 2 mana to, on a blocker can catch up to you. But we all have also seen that Mark's list has the ability to gain life, and that can be pretty important.
So Paulo does have Furious Reprisal in hand, it looks like, and that gives him the option of taking out any 2 of Mark's creatures. So the question is, does Paulo want to attack first, not caring about Scrap Heap Scrounger dying?
God, that is savage. Especially, again, after Mark had spent a little bit of mana here, a little bit of mana there, not doing much, he just clears the way for 6 damage with 1 card and really shores up this board state. Now, there's a Mercado Pillar Bug off the top for Mark. Like we said, he does have ways to gain life and get back in this.
And this is the kind of game where the fact that Mark's turn 4 was spend 4 mana for a 2/2 and draw a card and lose a life, it's just not as impressive as what Paulo spent 4 mana on. Just that extra card advantage that Mark was getting. Great in the long game, less good when both players are curving out.
See that Paulo also has a Fateful Showdown in his hand. There are very few ways to do damage directly to your opponent in this format. There's no Lightning Axe or anything like that. But Fateful Showdown does, and it is one way that you can steal a win from players who are not really thinking about that as one of the options on how they might lose the game. So we'll keep an eye on that and see if it ends up being a big factor. Mark, though, is going to use the Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot to draw a card, hit his land drop, and then revoke the privileges of the Scrounger, hopefully just keeping that thing at bay for the rest of this game. Now, in the meantime, he's still taking what ultimately are big chunks of damage in the air from this Screecher.
Yeah, and that Fateful Showdown means that Paulo's not that many hits away from winning.
1.
Especially given that he's got another Foundry Screecher in hand, he could very easily set up a situation where Mark needs to answer both Foundry Screechers or die to Fateful Showdown.
Yes. You have to figure that Mark has some type of answer for the Screecher. Now, the second one is going to be a surprise to him, but he did not, he could have left back his Construct to block the Scrounger and sort of set that loop into motion slowly for a while, and he didn't. So I would assume that Mark has some way to interact with the Foundry Screecher here.
He has the best way.
Ooh, he does indeed.
Yeah, Essence Extraction
is going to buy him a lot of time. And then the Pillar Bug to give him some hope of climbing back in.
That actually is exactly what Mark needed, because it deals with the lethal threat and then makes it so Fateful Showdown is no longer just lethal.
Yes. Now, he doesn't know about the Fateful Showdown, but if he would not have made that exact sequence of gaining the life while killing one of the creatures, he would have been dead.
Yeah, it was a tough turn for Paulo to imagine Mark stabilizing without something like Essence Extraction, but Essence Extraction will do it in one shot.
Right. I mean, it's so close that, like, if Mark had been like Die Young, Mercado Pillar Bug, he would have lost.
So the key here is that if that Pillar Bug gets a hit in, it buys Mark another turn, but there's a chance that he doesn't want to trade it off. The downside for Paulo, though, is because Malphus Doorbuster is so good at eliminating blockers, that Pillar Bug is almost forced to attack.
Right.
You can't leave it back and just get door busted.
Interestingly here, it's a tough decision, though, for Mark. He's really been content to just keep on attacking here, but this feels risky now with his Construct. He may want to leave it back. The interesting thing, though, Luis, is that he's got exactly 6 mana, and he has in his hand a Wisp-Weaver Angel. So he can reset that as a blocker if he wants to just chip in for 2. The problem is that he can't activate the Pillar Bug and cast the Wisp-Weaver Angel as well.
So what Mark may be looking to set up is that Angel, like you said. That'll give Paulo the opportunity to Malphus Doorbuster, make the Angel unable to block, getting 3 damage into the Foundry Creature, and then using Fateful Showdown. And I think that Paulo's going to do that.
I think so too, because here we go. The Wisp-Weaver Angel is going to reset the Pillar Bug to give him the most amount of blockers he can have, 3 of them, but Paulo is going to Doorbust the Flyer. That's going to get in for 3. And we'll go through the motions here, but Paulo has enough cards left in hand. He's got 4 total, one of them being Fateful Showdown. Do 3 to your head, and he's going to have to discard these, but that's game. Paulo Vitor Rosa steals game 2 and, kind of methodically work through game 3 to take his match for Team Brazil. So that means that we've got Patrick Dickmann having won his versus Thiago Saporito. Paulo Vitor Rosa narrowly defeats Mark Tobias, and that means that it's Dennis Nolte versus Patrick Fernandez. Game 3 for the round.
Yep, this will determine the winner of this round. And man, if you're Paulo, you almost feel like you're living on borrowed time still. He stole game 2. He knows he stole game 2. Mark knows he stole game 2.
Right. And
that means that if Brazil does end up walking away with this match, Paulo's going to feel pretty good about that sequence of events.
No kidding. And that is kind of one of the things that needs to happen, right? You know, people always say you need to run well to win a tournament or to put a deep run in a tournament. That's part of the deal, right? You kind of steal a game, you get away with something, and run it up.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, at the beginning, your win share is 50%. You should win 50% of your matches. So to get the percentage above 50. You have to play as well as you can. You have to hope your opponents sometimes make mistakes, and that is how you get to a win percentage of in the mid 60%, which is that is world class. Like if you can win 64% of your matches, you are an elite player, and Paulo has gotten there by winning matches like the one we just saw.
By the way, this is a pretty nice sequence here for Dennis. He had the turn 1 animation module, and then the only thing you want at that point is some type of creature to put a +1/+1 counter on, and he had that with the Thriving Grubs.
Yeah, it's a nice little combo that makes the animation module kind of the bomb that it is. It's a card you have to build around, but it is worth it when you do.
Absolutely. He does have enough mana to activate it. It costs 3. Ideally, you have 4 mana so that you can make the servo that you get, kind of for free when you activate it. But even this already is putting pressure on. And Patrick had one of the most beefy 2-drops in the format. He had a 2/3 on turn 3, and it's not good enough. Another Thriving Grubs here for Dennis. Gives him perhaps from an insurance policy. Again, the thing that you don't want to happen is that you don't have any creatures with +1/+1 counters, because then that module doesn't do anything anymore. Module is really tough to figure out at first, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird card.
All the modules were it was a little unclear exactly where they fit in, but it turns out they're just great in this format. All of them, and animation module is generally regarded as being the best.
Yeah, it turns out there's a reason why that's the rare one.
Yep.
So no play there.
So last turn
from Patrick,
Dennis did not spend 1 to make a servo when he attacked with Thriving Grubs, and there's basically 2 reasons that's how that would have played out. One is that the more common one is that he's leaving mana up for a green combat trick, or at least wants to represent it. The other is that he missed the trigger, or didn't see that was an option, and Patrick has to now decide, which of those it is.
I think he just missed it.
That's what it looks like, but from Patrick's side of the board,
you're thinking Blossoming Defense.
Yeah, the Ornamental Courage. The first thing I would put my opponent on is that, because that is more likely. But if Dennis doesn't play a trick here, then the truth may be revealed.
Yeah, the thing about animation module is that it says whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are placed on a permanent, it triggers. But the thinking on it is that you pay 3, tap it, make an additional counter, and then you're like, oh, I'll pay the 4, I'll pay the extra mana to make it. But it actually does trigger anytime you get a counter for any reason, not just from itself. It looks like the German team decided they were okay with the trade there rather than activating the module and taking on a little bit of extra risk.
Yeah, so they could have paid 3 and put another counter on the blocked Thriving Grubs. That would have let it defeat the Seed Sculptor without dying, but against a green-white deck with 3 mana untapped and 6 cards in hand, seems like a pretty risky play to make.
Agreed. So they're going to just let that happen, especially given that they already have a Thriving Grubs to keep putting counters on. In the meantime, Patrick from Team Brazil here has played a Pima Outrider. Not sure if he's going to make a servo or put a +1/+1 counter on it yet, but either way, a nice solid 4-drop addition that actually is going to help him stabilize the board. But we're going to see Dennis activate that animation module on end step, putting another counter on the Thriving Grubs, and then he'll have the mana to do it again here. And it gets out of hand very quickly.
Well, on turn 3, that actually is a good reason to not make a servo. The timing was such that if he made the servo, he actually wouldn't be able to activate the module, and so that actually made combat go better for him. So that is actually another good reason not to use animation module.
That makes sense.
Now that he's leaning more into the activated ability, since Dennis actually hasn't played very many spells this game. He's only played the 2 Grubs and the module, despite seeming like he has a lot of action, because the module creates so many possibilities. And speaking of possibilities, the whole team is ready and willing to offer advice here.
It is interesting to see how different players react to that as well. You'll normally see the stronger players helping out the less strong players, but when you do, some people take advice very freely, and others get flustered. They don't get mad, but it just can start to pile up a little bit. All right, so here's Harness Lightning now for Dennis.
Get 3 energy, pay 3 energy.
And he's going to just go ahead and pay the 3 energy to take down the Pima Outrider, leaving Patrick with just a servo.
And that's going to put Patrick very much on the defensive here, especially since Dennis has been able to play, somewhat efficient cards and, put a lot of pressure on Patrick where Patrick's playing 1 spell per turn. And remember, Patrick didn't play anything on turn 3. That's an important turn to skip in a game that does not look like it's going to be very long.
Now, one interesting thing that can happen here, Dennis is going to go ahead and use his module to make the grubs big. But if Patrick has a way to kill the thriving grubs, and I don't mean keep it on the board, kill it like revoke privileges, I mean get it out of here, then he will have shut down Dennis Nolte's entire game plan. And, the module doesn't do anything if you don't have creatures with +1/+1 counters around. I mean, right now, Team Germany is leaning very hard on a thriving grubs.
Pretty funny that Patrick has 5 cards in hand, but because he doesn't have double white, he can't play Area Responder. Hunt the Weak and Blossoming Defense require a creature in play, and then
not so impeccable
timing, not big enough to take the grubs, and then Wisp-Weaver costs 6. Patrick has 5 cards in hand and essentially has 0. None of the cards do anything right now. It's really hard to assemble a hand like this, but they managed to get there.
You could see it on the face of the Brazilian team there, too. They're kind of like, well, what are we supposed to do here? And as it turns out, their life total is falling away very quickly to this thriving grubs. It might just be too late. Once you get into chump block mode where you're like, okay, Wisp-Weaver, we finally did it, and you just have to chump block with it, well, it's not going to work out very well.
Yeah, and for those asking about advice in teams, part of the strength of teams is that you can get advice from your teammates. And, Marshall, like you mentioned, being able to take advice and give advice well is part of the skill of team competitions. Forrest is one of the more mocking draws I can think of.
And he just has to throw his hands in the air, and that is Team Germany clapping and saying, what did you have in your hand? Nothing I could cast. Team Germany defeats Brazil here in the second game to improve to 2-0. Brazil going to take their first loss pretty early in the tournament. They are, though, one of the more powerful teams out in the field. Thiago Saporito and Paulo Vitor Rosa headlining that team as 2, platinum-level players that we see quite a bit out of the Pro Tour as well. Welcome back to the booth here. Marshall Sutcliffe with Luis Scott Vargas as we work our way through the early stages of the day here at the World Magic Cup in Rotterdam. It's been great. We don't get to see a lot of teams sealed. Last weekend we had a GP in Rotterdam here in the same city that was this format, and now we get to see it.
Why is Rotterdam hogging all the team sealed?
Rotterdam's a nice city, though, to be fair. They do deserve it. But, all right. But that is going to do it for round 2. We'll be back after these messages.
Welcome back to the News Desk. Rich Hagan, your host here at the World Magic Cup in Rotterdam. Round 2 is winding down. As you can see on your screens, about 10 minutes left in the round. Our reporter, Brian David Marshall, is out on the floor looking at all the matches that are still going. One of those, they lost their first round, so we're going to head out and see how the 2 Hall of Famers are doing. What's happening with Team Japan, BDM?
You know, Rich, I am all the way in the furthest corner of the hall. We saw Team Japan lose last round. They are playing right now in Game 3 of the 3rd match of the round against Team Lithuania. Captain Gudinis Vidagiris looking on as his teammate plays against Toru Takeshita. Takeshita has a thriving Rhino in play. He just played a Bristling Hydra. On Lithuania's side of the table, you see a Weldfast Monitor. You see a thriving Grubs with a +1/+1 counter. And you see a Fairgrounds Trumpeter, which could get out of hand should this game go long.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to see some more counter action. There's Kujar Seed Sculptor potentially coming down there, BDM, although it looks like they're looking at a module in hand.
And you know, one of the things you see about these green decks is they are, even though you have more than enough cards to build a 2-color deck, sometimes enough cards to build a monocolored deck if you wanted to, the green decks will very often be 3 colors and take the best ofs from all the cards that don't get played in some of the other decks. Oh, and there we see an animation module card that was just played heavily in a in our main feature match, and here we see it doing its thing. Seed Sculptor puts a counter on Weldfast Monitor. He pays 1. He gets a servo. He attacks with the Trumpeter.
This is
Thriving Grubs.
This is looking pretty.
Monitor.
Yeah, it's looking pretty exciting for Lithuania, BDM, because with all those counters, Fairground Trumpeter's going to keep getting bigger. You imagine what an Armorcraft Judge would do on a board like this right now. I'm not sure whether they have one of those coming their way.
All right, Toru Takeshita is taking 8 here. Japan is on 2 life. And that's the hand. Japan, one of the favorites coming to this tournament, falls to 0-2. Team Lithuania got off to a little bit of a rocky start. They are evened up at 1-1 here as we go into the 3rd round of Team Sealed. Animation module. I love all the modules. Animation module, pretty powerful. We saw it in the feature match area. Now we see it in play here on the floor. Sending it back to you at the desk, Rich Hagan.
Thanks very much to Brian David Marshall. We're going to send him in search of more magic because by my reckoning there's still half a dozen or so matches still going here at the end of round 2. So Japan are 0-2. That's a surprise, but it doesn't mean they're out of the running. Just to walk you through the structure, again, if you're just joining us, welcome along. 3 rounds of Team Sealed. We go to Unified Team Modern this afternoon. 4 rounds, and all 73 teams will play 7 rounds today. The top 48 will advance. So Japan with work to do. Roundabout from here, maybe 3 wins, 2 losses would put them to 3-4. That's likely to be enough. 3-4, 2-5. That's probably the boundary of where that 48th slot could leave you on the outside looking in on day 2. But we do have more action as promised out on the floor. BDM, where are you? What's going on?
All right, I'm still in the back half of the room. Lots of stuff wrapping up over there very quickly, but in the 0-1 bracket, I've got Team Australia versus Team England. And again, I believe this is Game 3. Game 3 of the 3rd match of the round. And you can see Team Australia with a aerial responder with a counter on it, a Propeller Pioneer, a Thriving Ibex, a Seed Sculptor. You see a token that's a copy of a Dakara Peafowl, and a Percata Pillar Bug in play for England. Lots of mana available.
So this one of the classic rivalries in not just World Magic, but World Everything. England against Australia, the old enemy, and indeed the friendliest of enemies. And that's Graham McIntyre playing for England. His home base is in Nottingham right now. He's very much a local to me. Plays at the Chimera Game Store and one of the best players there for sure, alongside players like Neil Rigby, who's of course here on the coverage team, and Matt Light. Graham McIntyre very much part of that Chimera community in Nottingham.
There's a Riparian Tiger for Team Australia, Rich. So just marshalling his forces there.
Yeah, Riparian Tiger's quite a bit bigger than an Aether Theorist.
All right. England passes the turn back to Australia. See if I can get a look at the life totals for you.
Just a single card in hand for McIntyre right now. In blue-black, you'd like to think it was something like a tidy conclusion. He could certainly do with one against a Riparian Tiger.
Team Poland and Team South Africa. Team South Africa, can you please come to the scoring table, please? Team Poland and
So trigger on the Thriving Ibex.
Yeah, it's time to attack here.
Yeah, here we go. So Riparian Tiger in as the 6/6. Aerial Responder already with a counter on.
Using up all his energy, sending everybody into the red zone.
What is that last card in hand for England?
I can tell you, but I don't want to ruin the surprise.
No. I know you're right on top of them as well, so certainly don't ruin the surprise. So England working through the blocks. Propeller Pioneer would be blocked. Dakara Peafowl would get in the way of the Responder. The Theorist would just get munched by the Riparian Tiger.
Yeah, it would have tread marks.
Yeah.
I think it's 5 points.
Teams are talking out loud about what's going to happen here. And the judges have justified Team England that they need to play a little faster here. Lots of discussion going on, sort of slowing things down, typical of what you see as we get into the later part of each round.
So just taking care of the life gain on the Bracata Pillarbug there. Servant of the Conduit bites the dust. Aerial Responder gains some life back the other way for Australia. Dakara Peafowl gets to bounce off it. Riparian Tiger was definitely the main thrust of that. Here's Aether Theorist for England. And still, one card in hand for Graham McIntyre.
The Australian team lining up their attacks. It looks like they're going to do the same thing. Send everybody in.
Yep, that Responder doesn't need to incur the wrath of the wrist in any way. You can just straight up, it's vigilant. So here's the English blocks again.
Eduardo Sajilik jumping into the fray there to help out with the blocks.
Yeah, he's the team captain, currently residing in Canada. He moved there a little bit earlier this year. So who knows, we could see him playing for Canada next year. But he's been a big part of the UK community for a bunch of years. It's great to see him here for his farewell tour, if you like, from the England team.
So in the end, it looks like a Peafowl token is getting in the way of the Tiger. Pillarbug is going to attempt to eat the Seed Sculptor, and the Aether Theorist is going to get run over by the Thriving Ibex. And again, the judge reminds them that time has just been called in the round. Time has just been called. There are only 4 other matches out on the floor. Just taking a look around, just seeing what else is going on. It seems to be little pockets of, you can see little pockets of crowds huddled around tables. I do see that Portugal is still playing this round, and Marcio Carvalho is still in what I assume is game 3 of their 3rd match of the round.
Yeah, Portugal were up against Chile this round at 1-0. Table 18, halfway down the field, 36 matches each round this morning. One team gets the bye. In round 1, that was Luxembourg. They got the free win to open their account. But from round 2 onwards, it's a team who are currently on 0 points that will get the bye.
So worth noting, England is at, 1 life here.
Right. Yes, there was a sense that they were looking pretty desperate throughout most of these interactions, and the fact that Australia, because the British blocks have seemed pretty reasonable, but Australia have just been in.
England did draw a card that's going to potentially give them a little bit more life here, literally and metaphorically.
Literally and metaphorically. I would have thought like it might be Appetite of the Unnatural. Well, what is that going to target? So maybe not that.
Essence extraction on the Seed Sculptor.
So that's up to 4.
But still no answer for that Riparian Tiger. Just had to chump block it with a P-Foul token.
Yeah, and I know you can't say it, BDM, but yeah, there it is. There's Pima Outrider coming along.
Yep, making a servo.
And Pima Outrider, of course, has Trample.
Another good draw here for England. It might not be enough, though. A tidy conclusion off the top for Graham McIntyre. Don't worry, I've walked pretty far away from the table to say that.
Sure, I hear you. Yeah, it's that word trample that's going to be so difficult. You can't just, yeah, sure, you put the 2-4 in the way. So that'll take nothing. There's
and
the
extends
handshake.
the hand, yep. Australia goes to 1-1. England falls to 0-2 here at the World Magic Cup. Sending it back to you at the desk, Rich Hagon.
All right, thanks very much, and we'll get Brian David Marshall right back here as fast as his legs will carry him, because we're going to get into part 2 of our sealed deck exercise. But more results coming in for you. Now, Belgium were up against Team USA. Now, a lot of you are fans of Team USA, and Turtenwald, of course, leading the team. Belgium win that one. Pascal and Peter Viren in that team, and Branko Neyrink amongst those. Justin Baston is the 4th on the Belgian team. They have defeated USA, so that's the first loss for Turtenwald & Co. 2-0 to the Belgians. Scotland, meanwhile, are at 2-0. They defeated Poland. That was Gregor Kowalski, the gold level pro, Maciej Janik, Piotr Glogowski on the Polish team. What else? Who else is at 2-0? Well, Germany, of course, you saw defeat Paulo Vita, Dama da Rosa, and the rest of the Brazilian squad. Thiago Saporito, Patrick Fernandez playing in sealed this morning for them. Bulgaria is up to 2-0. They defeated England in round 1, but a big scalp in round 2. It's Joel Larsson and the rest of the Swedes. Per Nystrom, part of that squad. So Bulgaria 2-0, and China are at 2-0 as well. Well, the match is still coming in. We're down to 3 matches left in the round, as you can see on the top left-hand corner of your screen. So why don't we get into a little more of our sealed build before the end of the last round. Simon Gertzen, BDM, and I took it upon ourselves to work our way through 12